What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Owl Recap, a show focused on covering the news, matches, and results of the Overwatch League. Today, we're doing episode 41, and it's a very special episode because it is the end of the Overwatch regular season. That's right, it is week 5 of stage 4. Finals have happened, results are in. It was a roller coaster of emotions, especially for guys like Bob, who could not have seen this coming from the beginning. Lots and lots to talk about, though. But let me introduce my wonderful co-host today. We got Bob, as always, joining us. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, man? I'm doing good. Doing really good. I watched a lot of Overwatch this week and it was kind of sad.
Sad but happy yet, I would say.
Yeah,
I
I mean
think there's a
it'd be a good
redemption story
break.
here to tell.
Yeah, I was just saying it was the last week of the first season. All we have left is playoffs and then it's going to be no Overwatch
Oh,
League
right.
for a little bit.
In
So,
that sense, then yes, I agree with you. Absolutely. We also have Mel joining us today, as always.
Hello. I was not as excited for the finals in Overwatch, but it's all right.
There's always next year.
I know.
And today, joining us for the first time, we have a very special guest joining us from Enter the Iris podcast, Icy Sorrow. How you doing? Oh, I think you're muted, Icy. Can't hear you.
I think she's having mic malfunctions. I see you could try leaving the call and coming back. We
We'll wait
can
for her.
yeah, we can cut this from the audio version.
Yeah, no problem. Well, she comes back though. I really want to thank our Patreons, recap producer Shazir. Thank you so much, man, for contributing to the show at the top level. You are super awesome, helping us achieve the dream. And if you guys like to join the Patreon and support us as well, you can do so over at patreon.com/owl recap. It's the best way to support the show if you really like what we do over here and want to see us keep growing. I'm going to pass it to you, Mel, to guide us through some news over here. We got a couple of news to go through before we get into the meat of the stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Um, we are. Hold on. Okay, so Overwatch League came out with their season 2 roster rules and some kind of exciting stuff, some different things that I wasn't expecting. So they've added this whole like two-way players. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but
Yeah.
it's basically something that you can have a player on your roster and they can be on a contenders team and they can go back and forth. They can't do it in the same week, but they can go back and forth. So you can have up to two of those players. I think that should leave a lot of room for maybe those players that aren't super valuable to the starting squad, but still want to be subbed in occasionally to still get some practice and some valuable playtime. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, we were talking about this with Deathblow from High Noon, and we called it the Boston Uprising contingency rule, basically, because of what happened to Boston Uprising this season, right? The signing period was over, some unprecedented event happens, and one of their players needs to completely drop out of the league. Turns out they didn't sign any more DPSs. Now they're kind of stranded with their B side DPS, and the whole team kind of suffered a lot from this event. I think that first week was kind of like a cushion. They did okay. They finished the stage okay, but then after that, we saw that it was not okay for them. And I think this is a way for the league, since the teams can only sign 12 players. That's their maximum. But you can never know. Maybe two players have to drop out. What if it's your two support players? You don't know that. So this allows any of the teams who've invested into academy teams and are grooming some talent to be able to take some of those players, probably their most talented or the ones that can actually replace what they need, to come in and sub in just in case they need it as an emergency kind of, hey, we ran out of players. We need somewhere to pull from. might as well pull from our academy teams that are already playing the style that we are trying to cultivate and so on.
Right. But it does go into their 12-player limit, right? So they can still only sign 12 players, including these two-way players.
Oh, interesting. I thought that was over the 12-player limit, but it's counting the 12 players.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
counting
it's
the
counting
12
them.
players.
And I think
So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think this is just a good thing for your players that are really eager to play but aren't starting. You know, like your Rascals, your Fishers. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have two amazing tanks, but it's just your uh, it's just a way to get them some playing time and to get give them a chance to to show what they can do at the lower level to give them sparks for the coaches to see what they can do at the higher level, and they stay hot that way, so they get basically like the practice squad in the NFL. They get pulled up from the practice squad because they need to suit more players and somebody's hurt or somebody's out, and so I think it's a good thing. It'll keep them hot.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
I
What,
was wrong. It's four. You can have four two-way players, but only two of them can play in a contenders match in 1 week, right? So you can't just have like four really great players dominating your contenders team most of the time.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a cool rule. It's definitely one of those rules that shows that the league is evolving. They're learning from their mistakes. They can see where things can go wrong, and they're just putting safeties in place to keep it going. All right, now we do have from Enter the Iris podcast, Icy Sorrow. How you doing, Icy?
Hey, sorry for the malfunction. It should be good to go now, though. Appreciate
No
your
worries.
patience.
I am very familiar with technical difficulties. Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about yourself? What do you do for Overwatch and the reason why you're here after visiting Burbank for the first time? Or this is the second time you go there, right?
A couple times now, yeah. So
Okay, cool.
I am Icy Sarah. I have a podcast on meta and just self-improvement called Enter the Iris. I'm here today because I actually able to go to a couple of matches last week, and then I was able to go to the finals yesterday for the stage, which was awesome. I got to go do some interviews. It was just a really fun experience all around.
That is awesome. Icy was there on behalf of our recap. She got to go to the press conferences, talk to all of the players, ask some questions. How was that for you?
It was crazy. Just like being that close to the players, being able to ask the questions that you like really want, and then be able to get the response that you want for the most part. There were some things that I was surprised about, but I can go into that later too.
Sure. Any highlights? Any stuff that sticks out that you really enjoyed, or funny things?
I think my favorite thing that happened ended up there's this inside joke that I heard that Sabiobi always wanted to steal his nameplate
Oh yes.
during
Every
the
time.
all four stage.
Every time.
And they took it away from him one last time, and then was like presented it to him as like a going like a parting gift for like the end of the stage, and he was like super happy, and he like waved with it as he was leaving because they thought they were going to take it back from him. It was good though. It was good.
Oh my gosh,
I think I saw
every
some video
time.
about it.
Every time he's always like, come on. And they're like, no, man. And I'm like, seriously, somebody get him a nameplate. Like, are you really like, it's like $2. Like, somebody buy him a nameplate. That's all he wants.
It's hilarious because this has been happening since stage one when we went for the first time. And I remember their first press conference, they went down there and say BOB saw his name card and he fell in love with it right away. He's like, I need this. And he was like, can I keep it? And every single time they're like, no, no, we need it. But finally, say BOB gets it. I'm so happy for
Woohoo!
him.
There's a great
Well,
clip of it flying around Twitter, so I'm sure I can find it if you need me to.
he's he just likes to do things that make people uncomfortable. Like I've heard in interviews, he'll go in and he'll be eating like Cheetos, and he'll just get it all over his hands. And then he'll try and shake their hand when they leave, and everybody goes in because they're trying to be nice, and it's a player, and he's like, "No, what are you doing? It's gross."
He seems
So
like a prankster.
he's
He
definitely a
really seems like a
prankster.
prankster. Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me.
Oh, that's really awesome. That's really awesome. There's a couple more news, guys, but we'll get to that at the end of the show. For now, I want to jump straight into the results of the finals. Really exciting stuff. I think that the only team that was here that was for sure gonna be here was New York Excelsior. Everyone else was kind of up for grabs. I am really really happy the way that this finals ended up playing out. The four teams that made it to the playoffs are all incredible teams. Dallas Fuel surprising everyone, making it up in there and hanging out with the best of the best. Both LA teams have shown significant improvements throughout the entire season and are definitely playing at the top of their level currently. And the top dog, New York Excelsior, even though they did end up taking the whole thing, it's looking like the other teams are closing the gap on them. And at this point, it's just hard to argue that they're just sandbagging because it does look like they are giving it their all, but are just getting countered.
I feel like they are definitely. I know it was obvious they weren't trying as hard, right? But at the same time, I think they weren't trying as hard because they didn't have a grasp on the meta and they wanted people to be scared of them going into the finals and going into the season playoffs, right? And so I feel like it's not all sandbagging. I feel like they're doing things to kind of paint that picture. And everybody keeps saying, like, all traditional sports do this. You know, everybody does this at the end of the season when they've clinched the playoffs. But everybody in traditional sports does it so that somebody doesn't get injured, right? Like, nobody, like in football, you don't want to get hurt to not be able to play in the playoffs, right? And I get it that there's some mental, you know, they need to relax mentally, right? They need to kind of get their mind off of it a little bit, but I don't think that's happening, right? I think they're still pretty mentally engaged in the game and in their team. They haven't won the playoffs yet. And so I feel like it's a little bit less sandbagging, a little bit more just them not being as good without Tracer. And
don't get me wrong, they're still very good. They're still hanging out in there, and they still won the playoffs. But yes, I do feel like the other teams are adapting a little bit quicker than they would like them to adapt. Let's start
They
with
did. Whoa,
New
whoa,
York
whoa, whoa!
Excelsior.
They didn't win the playoffs.
Oh, my bad, my bad.
Yeah,
Valiant won the
NYXL
playoffs.
lost, man.
Yeah. No. My
3-1.
bad.
It's on screen right now if you're watching the live stream.
I was thinking about them versus Fuel for some reason. Yes, Valiant won. Let's talk about them versus Valiant to kick things off because that's a good example of what we're seeing with the league at this moment. Valiant is a team that has shown such a significant improvement from the very get go. And a big part of it has to be their leadership. The way that this team is moving, the way that they are using their old economies, and the way that they're synergizing with itself. Everybody just know exactly what they're doing, and they have a roster with incredible talent. I'm gonna pass it to you, Bob. Let's kick it off. What do you think Valiant is doing that New York Excelsior could not beat?
Valiant's willing to play all kinds of different comps. They're willing to play Brigitte, whereas Nixel has still not shown me that they can play her adequately at all. It's probably the worst team next to Shanghai and I haven't watched enough Mayhem games in the last couple of weeks to really make the call, but I think Mayhem's failing too. But I've watched Shanghai games hoping that they would win, and they're worse than Nixel, but Nixel just definitely hasn't shown any Brigitte, and I don't know if they're going to. I think they might try and win. I don't know. They might have learned their lesson after this game, or they were sandbagging. They had a specific set of rules that they were going to go by, and that was the comps they were going to run. They weren't going to show anything new. But I feel like that's crazy because we have so much time before the grand finals. Like, why would you throw away $100,000? I know it's for $1 million, but I don't think you give yourself that much better of a chance. They've shown their strategies all season and been just fine. I feel like it's bad to slow down so far. But you asked me about the Valiant and agilities, custa, space.
The entire roster, I think, is doing great. What do you think, IC? How do you see the Valiant?
So I see the Valiant as definitely an up and coming team. They have everything going for them right now. I think the main reason that they won against New York so handedly is that they definitely wanted it more. You could tell New York just didn't want this win. They didn't care. A lot of that, I think, comes down to the fact that, yes, they were sandbagging. They were using B strats. That was consensus backstage. That's a consensus everywhere right now. They were using B strats. That was all they were going to do for this stage. And I think since they're practicing on a different patch, they're practicing on the next patch is pretty much also what I've been hearing is that they just didn't practice for this match and it showed. So I think the other
Definitely.
thing they said in the press conference is that they were preparing for the gladiators. But I don't see that as being a good enough reason for NYXL to lose. As far as Valiant goes, like I said, I think they just had all their players were popping off. They were all feeling good. They won that first match, that match against the Gladiators with that battle for LA, which was super hype at the stadium. Like you can't feel the energy unless you're there. Winning that match definitely probably set them rolling for the next two or for the next one. So
Yeah, no, and that can be very true. Like the momentum, the hype, the adrenaline from a match, can definitely bring you to the next one and for you to be ready. And you could definitely tell that Valiant was coming all out. And I will say that regardless of New York not adapting their strategy as much, because I agree, their strategy was a little bit more rigid, while Valiant was all over the place, man. They were picking all different kinds of stuff. It was really fun to watch. But even then, Valiant was matching New York in any of their strategies as well. Just look at people like Soon. Soon is such an amazing DPS player for the Valiant, and you can't say how important it is for this team for him to be able to be on Widowmaker and Tracer simultaneously, no matter what. New York Excelsior, for example, if they want that super heavy Widowmaker map, they go with Pine. If they want that Tracer map, they go with Sabiobi. And granted, Sabiobi can switch around a little bit into Widowmaker as well, and Pine can play a couple other DPSs, mainly hit scan. They definitely were not keeping up with Soon. Soon was like, oh, you guys need a Widowmaker? I got you. Oh, say Biobi's going Tracer? Oh, I got you. No problem. And he was matching him at every point of the way. And likewise with Pine, I think that their carry DPS in New York Excelsior was just met his match, basically.
I will say there was a few times that you could definitely tell Soon was outmatched on Widowmaker against Pine, but then them on Tracer duels was not even a question, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it was a closer Widow match than it was a Tracer match between him and Pine. I feel like him and Sabiobi, I feel like Sabiobi is probably a little bit better at Tracer and Soon's probably a little bit better at Widow.
Yeah, dude. If I'm gonna call a better Tracer, I'm gonna call Soon. Soon's just.
I don't know.
I mean, they both have their own styles, but they're both. Whereas, like Striker's, I mean, Striker's name describes him, but like Sabiobi and Soon, they're artists, man. They are pure
They are.
artists. They are backcappers. They are doing things outside of the box. They're all over the place. Like they're very similar. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my money on Soon for Tracer too. And
As
Sabiobi's Widow's
far
not bad.
As far as the
No, it's
finals
not.
goes, I think that Soon definitely took the spotlight a little bit there. But that being said, I agree with you, Bob. You can't really say that Sabiobi didn't bring the fight because if you were looking at the kill feed that match, it was like Sabiobi would pop off and get like 2 kills, but then immediately Soon would come and he would match him. It's like, dude, I will get my 2 kills too. So it was like a very back and forth, and
And
it was
many of the
just really great.
matches, I mean, many of the matches we've seen, the MVP hero of the league, like I called it in like what was it, week 2, is Widows. Like Widows are the most important hero in the
Yeah,
game.
it definitely seems that every team will bring a carry hero, and the hero has evolved a little bit over time. Initially, we saw Genji a little bit of being that guy. Then it was Tracer, Tracer, Tracer for most of the middle of the league, and definitely by the end of the league was Widowmaker
I
with turn.
still,
It's always that one player in the team. It's like you got your one carry.
but like, look how dominant Houston was in stage 1, playing predominantly Widow. You know, like Widow has
Hmm.
been the teams that are on top in the stage are having good Widow play. You could almost set your watch by it.
It's just like Houston.
Absolutely.
When Houston plays, if Linkser is on his Widow game, we most likely win. If he's not so much on, mm, we're probably gonna lose.
That Widow duo is definitely very defining of who can push the match forward. Is there anything you want to add here to the Widow discussion? I see.
I don't know. I think, like you said before, Pine on Oasis was insane for me. Like comparing those two widows, Pine was getting every shot the first time, whereas I think it took Soon maybe like 2 shots, and he
Right.
gave himself
Same
away
with
when he was doing
Hanamura.
that. Yeah,
Hanamura
Hanamaru is
was
the
the
other
same
thing too.
way.
So, like, I mean, if you're looking for that good widow, it's the widow that can get in, get those shots fast without giving away position. Meaning you hit it on the first try. That is
Right.
a good widow,
Yeah,
and that's
Pine
what
is
defines it.
amazing.
And
Lots
both teams
of
have that.
Widows get by doing a lot of body shots. I mean, lots of them do, but Pine, it's like almost always head.
Yeah. Well, most of these soon, Sabiobi, even Surefour is getting like really, really good at his Widowmaker as well. I want to talk
Even
about Achilles a little
AKM.
more. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we'll get to that one. Absolutely. Your boy has been getting a little better. Let's talk about Agilis a little bit before we get into that, though, because compared to Soon, which we just talked, is kind of like that carry DPS. He's more of the solo, the lone wolf. He'll go on and make big plays mostly by himself. He'll go on flanks, or they'll leave him behind as the team moves over. But Agilities, on the other hand, to me, is more like a support DPS. He adapts to the strategy, whatever they need, whatever they need to put pressure. If it's with a Pharah, if it's with a Genji, if it's with a Roadhog, you need a Junkrat, this guy will pull it out. And more than that, if you watch Agility's play, he's never trying to make a solo play like Soon is. That's Soon's job. But Agility's job is there to be for the team, to adapt to the DPS, to help the tanks, help the front line, help your support players, help Soon, in fact, be able to get the space that he needs to be able to do those solo plays. And I think that there's something to be said about that, because I think that you need that kind of DPS in your team as well, just as much as you need that lone wolf attitude. What do you guys think?
I
And
mean, his flexibility is unbelievable, right? Like he knows when to switch. He can switch to so many different people. It's great. And his Pharah and his Genji are great. He's really good at Brigitte. He's came out on Hanzo and did really awesome. I just feel like he's really found his stride and he's gotten a lot more confidence and he's just making this team a lot more well-rounded. They don't have two set players that have to play something or one of two players, right? One of two characters. They've got somebody who can play a tank, play a healer, play a DPS, whatever you need, right?
If
and he's
anything.
still a damn good Genji. As they
Oh
got to
yeah.
play dive, they straight up played straight dive. I forget which map, but they played each other
Oasis.
straight up dive like the entire time. Like
Yeah, Oasis, they pull it
Tracer,
out.
Genji, and Valiant came out on top.
All right. Is there anything we want to talk about the finals match? Because it was very exciting. Valiant showed us an incredible game. I definitely recommend everyone to check it out. They pulled out so many strategies. I guess I'll just say this as the last thing, or if you guys want to add something, feel free. But I really enjoyed how they were switching to double sniper, then to meatball with Widowmaker. They were switching to Junkrat plus the Widow, and Soon was always keeping up with whatever Sabiobi or Pine were doing and switching accordingly. And then the rest of the team was just such a nice unit to watch. The reaction time of Valiant was just amazing, dude. Custa and Kariv were on top of their ultimates the whole time. But the
Yeah,
battle mercies from Custa, dude, he would
It
be
he was
killing that
killing it.
mercy.
was great to
Yeah.
Well,
watch.
and they were like rotating tank and support. So Zen and Mercy would pop their ultimate simultaneously, and then the tanks would. It was really weird. Or was that
Yeah.
Dallas? That might have been Dallas.
I just love how changing the meta is right now. Not even like within or across maps, but within maps too. Like you were
Right.
saying, we get the only thing that truly stays almost all the time is Widow, which I'm okay with. I think Widow's a really high skill cap character. I think that Widow makes it exciting, but Widow's really the only character that is there 90% of the time. Other than that, you switch healers. Okay, Mercy and Zen too.
And even
But
the Widow, we could switch just depending on what the attacking team was wanting to do, honestly.
And I mean, yeah, the other time you'd switch as widows if you were losing that widow duel. That's the only other time I see that switch.
Hmm.
Yep.
All right, I think that'll do it for the finals match. Let's take a step down and talk a little bit about the Fuel versus New York Excelsior, because this was another very exciting match. I wouldn't have thought that Fuel was gonna take it this far. The way the match started, it almost looked like it was just gonna be a
We were just
stomp.
gonna get stopped.
Yeah, but
I
no,
have a funny
sir.
story about that.
The Fuel really brought it back. Even AKM was looking a little better. I'm still not gonna put him in the same level as a Carpe or a Linkser or Pine soon, like we're talking about. But some visible improvement from the guy. He
Yeah,
actually
he's
looked
had
like a Widowmaker this
flashes.
time.
Yeah, well, he's looked like that for the last couple of weeks. Actually, he's had like flashes of just brilliance.
Hmm.
So that'll be something to look for come next season because I think everybody's going to be practicing Widow. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be able to play Widow come season 2.
For sure. Tell us your story, Icy.
All right, so it was pretty great. I was looking at the schedule when we went in, and it was like, okay, match 1 is at 1 o'clock, match 2 is at 3 o'clock, the match after that's at like 5. Um, so when we got to like match 2, when it was going to be that game, Dallas versus New York, I saw that they had shifted the schedule so that it started at 2:30 instead of 3. And I'm like, why are you guys expecting a sweep? And they're like, I don't know. And I see the fact that they go to 5 matches and it's way past the time that they push it up to. I'm like, sucks to be you guys broadcasting right now. But it was
Oh
pretty
man.
funny though.
Well,
They're like,
and
oh yeah, it's gonna be a sweep. We'll shorten the time. Nah,
Well,
that's not
and yeah,
happens.
the reason they thought that is because in stage 3 finals when we were there, New York came out like Boston came out and just wiped the floor. New York came out wiped the floor, and all of a sudden we're an hour and a half ahead of schedule, and they're
Oof.
joking with Custis saying, "Hey, we're gonna put you on stage and tap dance for like an hour and a half." Custis seemed down, but alas, it was just a joke. But so I think they thought it was going to go fast because NYXL had looked like they were kind of sandbagging a little bit at the end of stage 3, too, was said. And then they just come out and just dominate the entire day. I mean, the stage 3 finals, you definitely got a treat because these were better than this. Like stage 4 was way better than stage 3.
Hmm.
yeah, stage 3
Yeah.
was definitely fairly boring.
And I think at this point you just can't assume that it's gonna be a sweep. With these games, you just don't know, man. These teams are just evolving every week, and they come out with new strategies. The rosters change, the management changes. I don't know. It's just too hard to predict. I want to ask you guys a question though. This one is for Fuel specifically. Before we get into the rest, but what do you think about AKM versus Taimu? Because I think that these two players are sharing a very similar hero pool, but I just don't know if both are needed to fill that role. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a thought on everybody's mind is who's going to get re-signed. And I say if you're gonna keep one of them with ACAM's in improvement that he's shown and just his ability to show up day in and day out, I say you keep him. Taimu has always been streaky, and do you really want to take the chance that he's streaky the wrong times? ACAM's improving quite a bit, and if Soldier comes back in the meta, he's probably the best soldier in the league. So I
Ti-
don't know.
Tamu can be a little bit tricky, but I will say he is a big reason why Dallas Fuel actually took this to a map 5.
I think
Uh,
When Taimu is on, Taimu
But
is
you were
better,
talking about
much
next
better.
year. I'm saying what you do
Both,
next year.
both. I mean, based on what we saw, what do we think is going to happen?
I do think
um,
Bob's right that AKM is more consistent. He's not as good, but he's consistently, we're seeing improvements in AKM, right? On different heroes like Widow. Taimu, when he's on, is just unbelievable, right? Like his Widow in the third map, I think, was fantastic. And he was hitting shots like crazy. But when Taimu's not on, that's when they can sub in AKM. And I think, to be honest, AKM typically played what was map 3? I can't even remember right now. There's a lot of Overwatch this weekend. But
AKM only played the first map, I
I know,
believe, and then Taimu
I know,
came
I'm
but
into the
map
checking.
rest.
One
Map
sec.
3 was Lijiang Tower, I think.
so typically they had AKM in for Liishing Tower, but they left Taimu in. And I think because Taimu was more impressive and showed to be more confident on Horizon, which I think was map 2, I think they kept him in to kind of build that momentum. And I think that's the hard thing is that with a character like Widow, it takes a game or two to kind of get your mojo, except for Pine. But like,
Yeah, it just takes Pine about a half a round.
yeah.
A
So
few
like, it's
shots and
hard.
he's in.
Yeah, he's like, okay, I got this.
What do you think, Icy?
Like I wouldn't get rid of either of them if I'm thinking about it. So if Soldier comes back in the meta, then yeah, hell yeah, you want AKM. But a lot of the problems I feel that was going on with Dallas are starting to be solved. Like the management, the coaching is getting a lot better. From what I heard from the players at the press conference, like the main issues they were having stage 1 through 3 was that they weren't getting enough support, and their just backbone of their communications, their emotions even just wasn't structured the right way. And they have improved so much this past stage because they have that coaching now. I can see Taimu streaky in the past getting better just by having that kind of support. So I don't know. I wouldn't get rid of AKM. I wouldn't get rid of Taimu. I think they both have their place on that team.
They both have shown quite a bit of improvement since the first few stages, especially AKM. I mean, AKM started with a bang and then kind of fell off a little bit. I think he lost his confidence for a bit. A lot of people gave
They
him
put him on
crap.
Genji, and it was rough.
Yeah, it was a rough moment for
But
him. I think
Fleta took over. Fleta Blade is now a longer unit of measurement than a AKM blade.
since then things have gotten better for AKM. Then yeah, absolutely. And I think that at the end of the stage, he showed that he can definitely hang as Widow. He had a few moments there. I think there's still some improvement for him to be done to catch up with some of those top Widows, but he can definitely do it. Taimi, on the other hand, I think that he can be a top Widow and he can be a Pine. He can be soon, but it's like you said, he can be very streaky because I've always think of Taimo as a very emotional guy, and I think that you see it in the final. If you go and rewatch the Dorado map at the very end when they were holding point 2, and Taimu almost single-handedly won them that round, or got him that point when Dallas Field was on the attack. He got like 2 kills on the backline support. Um, But for some reason, some miracle, New York Excelsior was able to defend that point. And if you just look at that little section of the map, you can see Taimu kind of get a little bit irritated, like visibly irritated. And you can see Mickey be like, calm down, Taimu. He tells him with his hands, like, bring it down, bring it down. We're good. We got this. And I think that OGA, then you can later see do an explanation. You can just see Taimu kind of slightly kind of like roll his eyes a little bit. So I don't know if that's the kind of thing that happens to him. I think emotions can really get to him, but those same emotions are the fuel that drives him as well, right? Like that passion and that desire to really win.
For sure. I
Definitely.
can't think of anything more frustrating than like being frustrated with what's happening in the match and having like Mickey and OGE being like, dude, it's fine, whatever. Like you're like, it's not fine.
Mickey's great, by the way.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
Mickey's great. I'm sure that Mickey's like the gel that holds that team together. You know, he's like that likable guy that
Right.
if he's in the room, everybody can hang out because he's not awkward at all. You know.
Yeah. He's like the happy guy that you can't hate. You know, you're like, it's so annoying that you're so happy all the time, but I still really like you. I don't know why.
Another player that I want to talk about is Siegel. Siegel has really stepped it up too, and I think that his performance on Diva has been one of the most notorious in the league. He is very, very good at that hero. He is very aware of what is happening, and he always finds himself to be at the right place at the right time, pressuring the right people. But I also think that Siegel is in a very weird spot where he's half off tank, half DPS, and he keeps rotating between those two roles, which
All
we
badass.
all badass, yeah. But I don't know if it's working that well. Honestly, when he was a lot of the time in DPS versus New York Excelsior, I think that eventually he was forced back into the Diva because he was just not finding that much value. And I think that the two roles are different enough that I think he might be splitting himself a little thin. But what do you guys think?
I think he looks great on Diva. He looks average on Hanzo and Genji when he plays. He
Hmm.
just couldn't get as much going, I think, as big of an impact as he had on Diva. And to be honest, Mickey was doing great on Diva, but Siegel's better right now, I feel like. And Mickey's killing it on Brigitte, and I feel like that works for their team better. And we
Hmm.
saw them really rise once Siegel took over that Diva role. And, you know, a lot of other things happened. So who knows if that was part of it or if it didn't have any effect at all. But I think that his Diva looks great, and I think they need to figure out their other DPS role. I do think the flexibility occasionally is good, right? That
Right.
flexibility to kind of have somebody playing a tank and somebody playing a different role. The problem is that they're trying to switch roles, right? So when Siegel wants to go on DPS, then Mickey has to switch off his role and go to Diva. And then when Siegel wants Diva back,
It's a
Mickey
lot of
has to switch off.
switches.
Right. So there's a lot of people losing ult charge or coordinating to get back at the same time, you know, and so that makes it complicated too. I think it'd be easier if it was a tank that you could go without if you didn't have it.
Yeah, I don't. I'd have to disagree though. I think his. I mean, yeah, this weekend maybe his Hanzo was a little weak, but his Hanzo's been strong throughout stage 4, and his Genji's been strong when he's come in with it, but he's done it very infrequently.
Yeah, it's very on and off. And I will say, versus other teams, he can definitely get away with the Hanzo and the Genji and look really good. But I think that once he's standing versus the cream of the crop of the DPS and the cream of the crop of the front lines, you know, I think that is when you can tell that he's reaching his power limits there. What do you think, Icy?
I mean, I think with this meta, it's a very tank-heavy meta. And your DPS are Widow, Hanzo, maybe a Junkrat now and again,
Hmm.
Genji if you're throwing dive at them, Tracer, which are all very, I feel like, specialized heroes. And you have people in the league that are just focusing on Tracer, just focusing on Widow. Whereas Siegel, he has to be more flexible. He has to fill that diva role for their team right now because that's where they need him the most. So I think by splitting up his time, kind of like you said, Mel, he's not getting the time he needs on those DPS heroes that everybody else in the league who are playing those heroes or focusing on those heroes are getting that practice time. Siegel as a player is just an incredible guy to watch as a player, but he's not going to be the best if he doesn't have the same amount of time on them. It's just how it works. I think him
so.
on a diva role is a good thing for him as a playmaker even too, and as a guy who can hear his supports, be able to peel for them. Like he as a person, I feel like would be a good diva no matter what he does, just because of his game sense and everything about him.
Right.
I'm
His
really glad.
awareness was impressive.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you guys brought that up because I think that is the biggest asset that he brings to that team. And the reason why when he plays Diva, he seems so dominant because Diva is not a hero that requires you 950 hours of practice of aim, just aiming and clicking ahead. As long as you have really good game sense with Diva, you have really good movement, and you know where to stand, where to defense matrix, when to put pressure, when to defend your backline and be there. You're gonna do a lot for your team, and
Mhm.
that's what Siegel was doing the whole time. He was getting in the way of the enemy DPS. He was blocking critical areas for flanks. He just was always at the right place where they needed him.
I think also it was really big in the Widow duel too, because he was there with his Matrix to help his Widow get
Yes.
where he needed to be. And I think that was the main reason that they were able to keep up with some of those Widow duels was because
Yeah.
he was on that diva.
AKM owes a lot to Siegel's Diva, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah, and I
um,
mean, you don't usually see that when Mickey's in because Mickey's an offensive diva. He doesn't really
Mhm.
play the defensive role like a Cool Matt does. So yeah, it's definitely cool that they have both of those types of divas. Though it'd be cooler if they had space and he could do both, or they had Fury and he could do both. But at least they got
I
one
mean,
of
it's
each.
like it's like people switching off mercies. Like you have Boink as a mercy, and then you have Bonnie
No.
as a mercy. Sorry,
Boink doesn't really play
sorry.
Mercy. It's not a thing.
Well, sorry, I'm thinking of two different players, but I remember they had. I know Houston at one point had two different people playing
Oh
Mercy
no, you're right.
because of different
You're
styles.
right.
Yeah, it's just Boink doesn't play Mercy. That's kind of
Okay.
like
Okay.
Dak doesn't
He's just
play
horrible at
Mercy.
Mercy.
They're Lucios that were forced to play Mercy, and it was to no avail.
Hey,
I get it. I'm just saying.
They don't put Boink in anymore. Bonnie plays Lucio now
I don't think
because
Dax played
it's
for
not
like.
worth it.
I don't think Dax played for 3 stages.
Well, that's because Dak died a lot.
Poor Dak. We won't harp on Dak anymore. Um, one thing that I will say, and somebody that we have to recognize from Dallas Field too, is their new head coach Arrow, who will be coaching the U.S. team this year.
Yes.
Um, I will say that his coaching style reminds me a lot of the Outlaws in the sense that he's not trying to grab the best Widowmaker player, the best Tracer player, which I think for a while is what Dallas was trying to do. Instead, he just came into the team and he was like, okay, what do we have? Siegel, great diva. Mickey looks good on Brigitte. AKM, you got to improve your Widow a little bit. We're going to need you there. Taimu, I'm going to need you to get over your insecurities. We need you back on hit scan. And he has kind of like pulled his team together. And Dallas Fuel is doing things much differently than a lot of other teams, but they're playing to their strengths. And you have to admire that. They're no longer trying to do some weird offbeat, put AKM on Genji thing. They're like, no, 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 no. Guys,
Orisa on
what are we
attack
good
on Anubis.
at? Exactly. Now it's more like, how can we adapt our strategy? How can we adapt our movement or ult economy or formation or communication to play to those strengths? And this style has come since Arrow has joined the team.
For sure. I
Think
think there's been a lot of changes that have come to that team. Like we talk about them every week because there's always something that happens with Dallas, but they're definitely in a good light right now. And I think it shows just in their players' demeanor and the excitement that they have and the fact that they could come back after getting demolished on map 1 of that NYXL game. I mean, that or not the Yeah, it was the NYXL game. Like, they came back and they made it a game, and
Absolutely.
that's something that they wouldn't have done before. They would have self-destructed and they would have, you know, taken that and jumped in a hole and let it go.
Well,
And I
and
think, go ahead.
well, and it was Arrow specifically that did change that at half. They went into the half down 0-2, and Arrow said, "Guys, why are you being so passive? Like, NYXL plays a specific game, and they play it slow. Get in their face, pick a target, kill them, boom, you got the fight." And that's what they did.
Yeah, they even commented, I was listening to the casters during that game, wow, Fuel's getting aggressive. This is great to see, and they were dominating fights because they initiated them. And that's not something they typically do. They're usually kind of just this stand back team that just kind of lets things happen. And
Because I feel like they didn't have a plan back there. They were just like, "Hi guys, we're good at different heroes. Let's just hope our mechanical skill carry us." But they didn't have a plan like some of these other teams did. But now they do, and they're finding the openings. They're seeing the mistakes. They're like when Neo finally starts seeing the Matrix and he can start reading it. It's like this is what is happening to them right now.
I do. I think that if they keep on this path, I think we're gonna see some good things happen in season 2 for them, and hopefully they can just continue to get better and not go back into the meme of the fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is a redemption story. I'm so happy for the Fuel because they had such a rough season that to end it on this note is just great for the players. Even if they didn't win the finals, even if they're not going to playoffs, it's just they redeemed themselves. They were like, "Hey guys, we can still hang here. We're not a bad team. We just needed some guidance."
Sure.
All right. The other team that I really want to talk about is LA Gladiators and their match with LA Valiant. What a match. LA Gladiators almost took it. It was very, very close. They came back with a bang. Valiant was able to sustain those two last games, but it was not easy. And I will say, Gladiators is another team that is looking so creative. They're adapting their strategy. Um, they know how to create openings, and I don't know, their players like Hydration and Surefour are just huge threats. I'm gonna start with you, Icy. What do you think of these teams?
Let me think. So that was actually when I got there for the game, was a bit into that match. But I think when I talked to the Gladiators, they were super bummed out. But I think their strategy of going for Valiant first, going for the team that they thought was going to be the hardest, was the smart choice for them. I think
Mm-hmm.
them as a team definitely has I feel like they have a steady incline of like getting better over the season. It's not as steep as some other teams like the Dallas Fuel of just like going from like 0 to 100, but I feel like they have a steady increase of getting better throughout the season. I also appreciate them going for that LA versus LA kind of fight there as well,
Yeah.
because it gives you that energy again by having that they're shouting in the stage, wings up, shields up, back and forth, just for getting that energy up for the crowd. And it
That's
was just a
awesome.
fun match to watch.
Yeah, just from home, you could see that the arena was going crazy during that match. It was like one side completely green, one side completely purple. Everyone just shouting. It seemed really fun.
By the way, I disagree that it was a good choice to go for the Valiant.
Yeah, I would have to say
Because the
that too.
Valiant is the hardest team that they had to play. It's the Battle of LA. It's gone back and forth so many times. And let's be honest, sure, it might be good for your momentum to start with the hardest team, but you definitely make less money if you lose in the first round, so pick a different team. Now, that being said, I don't know which team would have been a better team for them to go against, right? I think Dallas would have been more difficult. I think NYXL scares them just because they're NYXL. I think they probably would have had a better chance against NYXL, to be honest, but I don't know. I feel like that was a poor choice. What I do respect about the Gladiators and love about the Gladiators is their ability to switch compositions on a dime, right? They make switches and counter picks so quickly and so well. I really give that to them. I think that's one of their biggest strengths.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree that picking Valiant was, you could polish that turd all you want, but it was a bad call. And if they would have taken NYX XL, I think they had a good shot at him. Fuel just had beaten Valiant and had been killing him in scrims too. So Fuel wins. You're the Gladiators. You were one of the only ones to beat Fuel, early on in stage 4. I'd say you take NYXL first or Fuel, but taking Valiant was the wrong choice. And you can say whatever you want, but excuse me, something in my
It's a hard decision, I think. I think I'm with Icy just because the battle for LA was so close to this match, right? Like they had just played Valiant. So I think that maybe in their heads, they had been thinking about that match, they had been analyzing the strategies, and they were ready for the rematch, right? They were like, I think we can do this. I think we can pull it off. And they were very close, to be honest. It could have been anyone's game, but agilities happen. And I will say it's a whole team effort, but man, I think that agilities was the biggest hurdle in their win, and
and
specifically Junkrat, agilities Junkrat, just
yeah.
because I. If you look at a lot of the matches, the Gladiators had a lot of amazing pushes, but the way Agilities was playing his Junkrat, he was getting that rip tire almost every single fight, man. And even they tried meatball comps, they tried a lot of things, but that rip tire was finding value all of the time and stopping their pushes. I don't know, just such a fantastic Junkrat play that we saw from him during that match.
I think
And I
Obviously,
if
he
you
think
was
have
coming off this.
hydration, like I think hydration trying to stick on Doomfist so much was a really bad call. He tried it multiple times. He only got value out of it once, and he played quite a bit of it. So I think that was an error on the Gladiators' part too.
I
Hmm.
mean, not even just Doomfist. He was playing hyper aggressive the entire match. I think that was a mistake overall. It was just too aggressive.
Hmm.
His team couldn't keep up and it just rolled out of from there.
And that's why I want to compare him with Agilities, because Surefour should be that person, right? He should be, he's the Widowmaker, he's the Tracer, he's that playmaker, that carry that we're talking about, like Soon is. But the Gladiators were missing that support DPS that Agilities was providing for Valiant. Agilities was just so on top of like, what is the main thing that we need to take out of the fight to win this thing, and he was just doing it at all times. But like you said, hydration I think was more focused on how can I make a play myself, uh, with Doomfist, with whatever I'm trying to play at the moment, and try to get that kill in the backline. But he wasn't as worried for his team as Agilities was, and that's why I'm highlighting that player as kind of like the difference maker in that matchup specifically. Even though
Yeah, you're
the
forgetting
support.
about the biggest different maker though, which is Space was all over Sunday.
Man, Fate and Space are both such a dynamic duo as well. And Valiant is so lucky to have such great coordinated frontline, because those two guys are all over the place and they're always creating space. Like Soon barely ever gets anyone on him. He is always in the corner looking for that Widowmaker duel, shooting out, but barely anyone contests Soon at any time. And I don't think it's because they don't want to. It's just because they can't.
right. Yeah, Space looked amazing, and he had some 3K Diva bombs, like multiple ones,
Yeah, the one
where he
on
was.
Watchpoint Gibraltar, had he not gotten that 3K on that first point, so they actually took the first point and then they ended up winning that map. Had he not done that, it probably would have ended 3-0 NYXL.
one thing I will say is Fate's monkey, his Winston, to me, it seems like it's made out of rubber or something because that guy is just bouncing all over the place and he gets so close to dying all the time and just gets topped off. It almost seems like a DPS soaking barrel is just like hit me all the time. It's gonna jump all over the place and never die because this guy just keeps alive for so long.
That's lots of Custa right there.
I see. You wanna add anything here?
No, I think you guys covered most of it.
I will say, I think if Gladiators had picked NYXL, we would have had a completely different final. I don't even think
could
it
be.
would be NYXL Valiant in the finals. I think it probably would have been Gladiators Fuel.
That would have been pretty interesting. I don't know. Something makes me think that if they had picked like Fuel or NYXL, we would have had an LA versus LA final, which would have been pretty hype too, honestly.
Well, the Valiant would disagree with you because they were scared of the Dallas Fuel because they've
They
been
did.
getting worked in scrims, which is so weird to me
Let,
that they scrim each other. It's still weird
let's
to me.
let's talk about that real quick because before getting to the finals, Fuel actually beat LA Valiant in a huge turn of events. I think that nobody saw that one coming. I think that I remember it was Friday and I was just hanging out. I was like, "Ooh, yeah, Fuel versus Valiant. Oh, I think Fuel's just gonna get rolled. I'm just gonna go eat some food and maybe play some Overwatch." And then I like checked the score later and I was like, "Wait, what? 3-1?
Right.
No, that has to be a mistake. Somebody made a mistake over here."
That's kind of like when I went to bed Thursday night and woke up. Wait, NYXL lost to the Uprising too? I fell asleep right at the start of that game, and I was like, I had to watch the
Yep.
VOD over again because I was like, what?
Yeah, it was like the Twilight Zone Friday or something. All the weird results came up.
But yeah, Fuel just looked good, man. And you talk about Soon, but Soon got worked by AKM and Taimu. I should have said that opposite. Taimu and AKM.
It was funny during the interviews, like you're saying, it's Valiant did not want to face Dallas. They kind of said that Dallas pretty much countered them as a team. They went to that point of being like the way that they play and the heroes that they play just counter what we do as a team.
Interesting.
So
We saw that. I mean,
yeah,
there's nothing
exactly.
I agree.
And it's just interesting that it can happen too. I personally love that style differences between teams can be the game breaker between some of them, where one team can be the scissor versus another team that is the rock to another team and so on, but not based on the heroes, but on style. And I guess on the hero selection based on that style, but I find it really cool that each team has like their own personality now. They're not all playing the same exact compositions. Obviously, some of them are working better than others, but even at the top four teams are playing very differently from one another.
Which is cool. Which is really cool. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
you want that
awesome.
variety. Yeah, and it shows that Overwatch, even though people complain all the time that the meta is stale, that some heroes are too dominant, which might be true in places like comp, when you really put the thought into it and you're bringing the talent together and people working on things, Overwatch is a very diverse game, and the more heroes that get added into the game, hopefully will add more diversity to it, right? I think that we still
Well,
see certain things like supports being repeated, but the pools for these heroes are small.
yeah, we're on a good patch. And Linkser actually went on. It was either Overwatch Central or Your Overwatch. I get those two confused. But he went on one of those at the stage four finals and talked about how Brigitte has been great for the game. What's been bad for the
Hmm.
game on ladder is Hanzo. And he says, and Custa talked about it too in one of his interviews about how Hanzo was the problem, and they're not really sure that Hanzo will get as much play when the pros pick up that patch. Like they think he'll get a little more, but they don't think it'll be like ladder. Like ladder's just stale because everybody's doing graviton dragons and
Yeah, and I think that the latter suffers from the effect of the flavor of the month kind of strategy. Like if there's anything to be slightly perceived to be overpowered, they take it to the next level, right? And then they will only play that, and anything outside that is not worth it. But honestly, it's more of people not wanting to think of like by themselves and being like, well, how can you counter that? Because if you look at the league, like you
exactly.
said, Brigitte is strong and it's strong in the right environments with the right compositions, but teams have also figured out how to counter Brigitte, and the same teams have to realize like, well, we can run Brigitte every time because they will eventually find a way through.
Right. I do think I think the Valiant in their press conference was talking about Hanzo being very
Yeah,
overpowered, and him will be coming into the meta and actually countering Widow, like
it
saying
was
that he
soon,
was hard.
pretty much.
Oh,
I
okay,
think.
yeah. He was saying that Hanzo's hard to play against as Widow, and Hanzo
Yes.
gets the upper hand.
Yeah. I will
Yeah,
say Hans. Oh, go ahead, Izzy.
yeah, he predicted that for the stage playoffs, it's pretty much going to be Hanzo Zarya dominant for a lot of what's going to happen. Which is, I'm kind of interested to see who you think is going to play Hanzo on the certain teams too, because if that's going to be meta, who's going to be playing the Hanzo? What are we switching off to get that Hanzo? That second
Agilities is
cipher.
gonna be the new carry. He's been waiting for
There
his
he is,
moment
the
to
carry.
shine. Poor Sune. The only carry that is not in his pool, Hanzo.
He's like, "Come on! I was a Tracer main. I switched. I became a Widow main. Now you're gonna put Hanzo in the meta? Not fair."
I will say the Hanzo versus Widow can be a tricky matchup just because Hanzo has so many tools against her, right? You can do Sonic Arrow and always see when she's gonna peek, and you have the advantage of being able to just throw the arrow and get out of there. You don't have with Widow, you have to peek, look, and then shoot, right? With Hanzo, you can just kind of aim in the relative location, just peek for a split second, let it go, and go back, and you're not really ever putting yourself at too much danger. Not like Widow in that sense.
Right. I think Stoon was saying like they're more squirrely too, like they're tiny and they have more mobility, and like their heads are really super small.
Yeah.
So like it's hard for widows to hit, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
Widow is a ballerina. Her head is like sticking out upright. She has a great posture. Hanzo, on the other hand, is like this Japanese rascal. I don't know.
So work on his posture. Let me hit his head a little bit easier. Come on.
It's kind of hunched a little bit. All right, guys. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Some of the matches this week, or anything that caught your attention? Any other highlights?
No,
I
I
will.
was just
I will.
sad that Houston
Striker's
lost to New
widow.
York.
Striker's
Striker's
widow's
widow.
getting good. That was
Striker's coming
that was
back a little bit.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they were able
Striker's
to
widow's
save that
getting
last
good.
match. Yeah. They won against New York Excelsior. Not for the first time, actually. Out of all the teams, I think that Uprising probably has the best record versus Excelsior at this point. But I'm glad to see that Striker is picking up a little bit. Definitely.
Yeah, he might be something to reckon with here in the finals.
He's a great player. I don't see him going anywhere, honestly. He got caught in a rough patch and they weren't prepared. All right,
Well,
guys, I think
should
that'll
we
do
talk
it for
about the
today.
finals? You don't want to talk about the finals?
Sure, go for it.
Well, I was just gonna say like who's going and what the matchups are, because it's different. It's weird. It's
Hmm.
so NYXL and Valiant both have buys the first week, and then Boston and Fusion play each other. So Wednesday, July 11th, Boston and Fusion play, and then Spitfire Gladiators play. And then Friday, Boston and Fusion play each other twice. So they play 10 maps. And then Saturday, Spitfire Gladiators play each other twice. So each set of teams plays 3 games against each other, best of 5.
Interesting. So it's not just one match.
No, it's best of 3. So I guess basically they did it they did it this way because Boston and Fusion play Wednesdays, so do Spitfire and Gladiators, but then if whoever won the first match wins that first match of the next day that they play, they don't play that last match.
Overwatch is always good at making some of these rules kind of confusing at first glance. I'm sure that we'll get the hang of it, but it's interesting because it gives several opportunities to the teams to kind of figure each other out and do
Right.
some counterplay, right? If the first
Well,
match doesn't go very well, you still have another chance.
and it could be like Friday and Saturday, you could just have one game.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So if they win that first game, whoever won the game on Wednesday wins that first game on Friday or Saturday, then you're done.
Right.
You
That's
don't play
don't
another
play the
interesting.
third. Yeah, yeah.
So how do
Not
I
like
plan my day? I'm like, well, I might be free 3 hours earlier. It's like, what the heck?
Basically just block off the entire 24 hours.
Yep. Yeah, or the entire 72 hours. It's
It's
fine.
gonna be the last little bit of Overwatch you gotta get to watch for a while though, so we might as well enjoy it and embrace it.
Right. So then the 2 winners of that go on and play, and then I think only 3 teams go to New York, right?
I think the next
I
set
believe
of
so.
playoffs is whoever had the higher seed coming out of week 1 plays against Valiant, and then whoever had the lower seed from week 1 goes against NYXL, and they do the same thing where it's the 4 teams doing this kind of sets of 3. At least that's my understanding. That's week 2.
So then week 3 is the one in New York, right?
I still think it's only 2 teams in New York, but I could be wrong.
It might be.
They haven't put it up on their website yet, but I saw it on paper yesterday, and I did not take that paper with me, and I should have.
You guys, pro tip. Pro tip. It's on the Overwatch League app. It's not on the
So
website.
they updated the app, but not the website. Liking it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
All
it's
right.
just
I do
2
believe
teams.
that the finals are just gonna be 2 teams. Yeah, I think it's gonna be an exclusive event that's gonna feature those two. It's gonna be focused on that. I'm sure there'll be like some other stuff, but I don't think they want to make it an 8-hour event. They probably want to make it like the game. Everybody
It's
comes
2
watch.
days.
It's 2 days.
Yeah.
Are they playing 3 games as well?
Yeah. So they play
You're
1 game on the
going.
26th and then 3 games on the 27th. Wait.
I think
Eh?
that's. I don't think they have the finals up there yet, do they? Because
I
that's
have
week
them on
3
the app.
playoffs.
Yeah, because the finals are the 28th and 29th of July, right?
27th and 28th. Oh, so they have 3 games
Oh
on the
yeah.
27th and 2 on the 28th?
But
Best
they
of
also
5.
have something on Thursday, so.
Yeah, I think that's just a random. It's at 2 a.m. Everything's at 2 a.m. Central Time, apparently. We won't go there.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk that far in advance, guys.
Yeah, we'll be back to talk about that in our next couple episodes, year in or season in review. We can hit on that.
We do have
Yeah,
a couple news things if you want to hit really fast.
let's do it. I'm gonna pass it to you to do it.
Okay, so we have the All-Star game that's coming up. One thing I wish they did with the All-Star game was I wish they made it like mystery heroes.
Yeah, I agree.
Come on!
Some fun
Tell
mode
me
or
you wouldn't want
something.
to see that.
That
Yeah,
would be cool.
but that would be great. And
I'll be fine with them doing some mini games with the all-star players, like
right,
putting them
like
in
capture
Custa
the
comes out and
flag.
kills everybody on Widows. Like, still want me to play
Dude,
Mercy?
Yeah.
So the
yeah.
way that they do it in like Dota too is that it's more of like a goofy match. Like you pick the best players, you pick the players that are your favorite, and then they just go out there and have fun. Like I feel like that'd be super fun. You'd see if Mumo is in it, you'd see him on Symmetra 100%.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
maybe it'll be on Mercy or something.
exactly, yeah. I think I'd rather see it be a fun match rather than a try hard match. But that's just me.
Right.
Yeah, me too.
I mean,
Because
I
we're
would
gonna have
like
try
both. I
hard.
would like both personally, the fun and then the try hard. That would be the ideal in my
Yeah,
situation.
both would be good. But I mean, we're gonna have try hard with the World Cup. I don't know.
Sure.
And like, some of these picks for the All-Star game just don't really fit. So, eh.
Yeah, so let's talk about so in the Atlantic Division is New York Excelsior.
Pretty much.
And no, it's Jonax, Sabiobi, Pine, Arc, and then we've got Carpe and Gesture.
Oh,
Okay,
cool. I'm so
so
glad that Carpe made it up there because he
well,
is
they're
good.
not confirmed yet. You guys still have time to vote
They're the
if you don't want to
leaders,
see
yeah.
these players.
Gotcha.
But then we
Well,
have
but the casters and the analyst votes aren't in yet though, which are gonna like have like a pretty big chunk of like their votes worth like 75% or 70% of the vote or something like that.
Oh,
what?
interesting.
Yeah, the
Rude.
casters and
Rigged.
the analysts have a
Rigged.
lot. It could be the opposite. It could be that they have like 30%. I can't remember exactly,
I
but
could see that
their
just so the
votes are not
person
in
does
yet.
some meme or something and puts like I don't know
Right.
some weirdo up there.
Fran,
Oh God.
A friend.
Okay, guys. Then in the Pacific Division, we have more variety.
Hmm.
So that's good. We have Fisher, Custa, Gaguri, Fleta, Ryujihong, and Siegel.
I
This is
like
like
it.
a
Yeah, I can live with that.
this is like a popularity contest.
yeah, totally. I mean, like we don't see hydration, we don't see agilities, we don't, we don't see Mickey. I don't know. Like this team,
You know,
like Fleta, like
Where's the
became
Outlaws?
meta like in the last week, but he was pretty much nothing for a while. Ryu J Hog was not the Zenyatta that was promised. Siegel is not a DPS. You know what I mean?
I,
It's
there's
I
also
think he
weird.
a
was listed
lot of
as a flex when they were doing voting.
there's also a lot of Koreans up there, so we gotta make sure there's no like Korean boosters or something
Right?
extra voting here.
Get him. Did you guys vote?
Yeah,
Yeah, I did. I did.
pretty much all of Houston.
Yes. Me too. I was like, but Linkser and Muma and Bulmat and
I honestly I
man,
voted
Bonnie's
for all.
really
I
good.
voted for all the widows because that's what I like watching. When I see widows,
Of
they just
course you
Did you
impress me.
did.
So
vote
I
for
was like,
Linkser?
who plays widow? I'm voting for you. I did, yeah.
Okay, you can't just have a team of widows, Andres. You have
as,
to mix it up.
as
Come
well,
on.
see, widows versus six widows.
Headshots only. Oh man.
That,
Okay, guys.
that's crazy. There's not one Houston player up in the lead at the moment.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. We need some Houston boosters, guys. Compete. Let's go. All right, guys, a couple other things. We've got a few dates to look out for. So with the new season 2 changes, they've got on August 1st, you're looking at re-signing player contracts. So from August 1st to August or September 9th, you can re-sign contracts. September 9th, the agreements end and the expansion teams have a signing window before everybody else. So from September 9th to October 7th, only expansion teams can sign free agents. And then on October 8th, the free agent signing window opens. So that's kind of
Cool.
interesting.
So right after finals, basically teams are gonna have some time to regroup, think about their future, think about what they want to do.
Yeah,
Um,
because everybody signed 1-year contracts.
mhm,
So they have to decide who they're going to keep, who they're going to let
yeah.
go. And then those people that are let go go into the free agent pool, and the expansion teams can sign them first
And
before the other
the
teams.
sooner that they can decide this, the better for a lot of these teams, right? Because you're gonna want to start working on these rosters, and who knows what they're gonna have. I bet that they might have some exhibition games or maybe some friendlies here and there. I'm sure that when the World Cup happens, all Overwatch League things will cease to exist for just a little bit to allow the players to, play for their country, focus on that. But I can see maybe come December or something, they doing some sort of event or yeah, some sort of exhibition match until June comes around and we can start the playoffs again for season 2 of Overwatch League.
Oh boy.
I'm excited. I think that this first season was pretty cool. There were some hiccups, but it was expected. Overall, I think it was very enjoyable. We're obviously we're not done with it. We're gonna go to the best part, just yet. But having said that, I think that the organization, the talent, the teams, and the stories that came out of it were all really cool. I really have enjoyed the ride. I'm looking forward to even more of it.
I'm not sure what I'm going to do when it's over, but a couple months, I guess I'll catch up on TV shows. You guys, last
Binge
thing,
watch all the Netflix.
right? Pretty much. Last thing. So apparently, Rascal is back in the U.S. So he went back to Korea and now he's back in the US and he said he has some exciting news coming. So there's a lot of speculation about what that could be.
Ooh, I bet it's contenders.
That little rascal.
I don't know. There's a lot of expansion teams too, though. So you have to think about that.
True. Yeah,
And
that's true.
so, if we're looking at 6 expansion teams, having that window to sign, he could be coming and doing kind of tryouts and whatnot to try to get a spot. So,
And I'm really interested to see what those expansion teams are going to do with the talent pool because, a lot of the known talent has already been signed, but there's still a lot of unknown, really good players out there. So I bet we're going to start seeing a few more kind of no names start appearing in the scene. And
for sure.
hopefully we
More
can see them make
Jonax,
a splash. Yeah. Although Jonak was known in Korea before he came over here.
whatever.
What about BlazzinBob? BlazzinBob, I'm available over here. You just give me a call. Just give me a call. I can coach. I can do whatever you want. I can get you coffee. I mean, I can do whatever.
I can
You
coach. I
heard it
can get you
here.
coffee. Either one.
Blazing
Oh,
Bob, free agent, Overwatch League 2019.
right. And then
I'm
London
diamond.
Spitfire
I'm
was
diamond.
get out of here. London Spitfire let go all those players, and I guess Hureg joined Runaway. So I think that's a contenders team. So that's all.
Cool. I think that'll do it for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining us at the All Recap. It was an amazing week. What a fantastic set of games. If you guys have not catched the finals or the semifinals, please do so because these are some of the best Overwatch League games we have had so far. The level of play and the strategies being done are just super, super entertaining to watch. Thank you so much to IC Sora for joining us today and for being our eyes on the ground floor over at the Burbank Arena. Do you want to do any shout outs over here, IC? Tell us where you can find you.
Sure, yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to do it. You can find me at Icy Sorrow on Twitter. I stream sometimes, usually Wednesdays, twitch.tv/Icy Sorrow.
And before you go, Icy, tell us the story about you sitting in the front row during the Twitch live all access panel with the winners. Tell us what it was like to ask a
I
question.
didn't even realize that like the third conference they were going to be like actually broadcasting that. So that was like my seat for the whole day. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here. And then they're like, well, we're gonna be filming this live to Twitch. And the girl next to me was like, okay, and she moved to the back. And I'm just like, well, I guess I'll stay.
Was that
thank you for leaving, Chelsea.
Tatiana?
No,
Oh,
it's Chelsea. But it was good. I'm glad I was facing forward because when I asked my question, I could just feel my face getting like bright red because I do terribly on stage. I do terribly in front of people. So I'm glad I said my question. I went back and I listened to it and it sounded pretty good without too much rushing or anything. So I was pretty happy with how it ended up. I did ask a couple other questions, but I'm glad I'm glad I had you guys there to support me on that.
You did a great job, and hopefully we'll be able to clean up some of those questions and play them for you later, or possibly in this episode, but probably next episode.
Gotta have something to talk about next week.
Yep. You can actually, I guess we'll do this now, but you still got to do all of the other ones. But you can find me on Twitter at Blazin_Bob. That's BLAZZIN_BOB. Where can we find you, Mel?
You can find me on Twitter at Mel Overwatch.
And you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. If you want to find the show everywhere else, you can also find us on Twitter at the Owl Recap, OWL Recap. You can also find us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Owl Recap as well. You usually stream on Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Today we did a little later to accommodate for IC, but you can usually find us. Yeah, absolutely. It was great to have you. But yeah, we usually do it at 9 p.m. Eastern. Join us there if you want to catch us live and interact with us in the chat. You can also join our Discord community over at discord.me/omniclab. If you want to chat with us, we have a live chat when any of the Overwatch League games are going on. We've been joining also a voice chat for some of the selected matches. So if you guys are any patrons of the show, you can join us there to watch the matches live with us there. And you can just ask questions, meet friends, hang out, and be part of the Overwatch community there. You can also email the show over at contact@owlrecap.com if you have any business inquiries, any feedback, or any pressing messages you need to get to us. Finally, our website is owlrecap at .libsyn.com. Can't speak anymore. That means it's time to close the show. But you can find the archive of all of our episodes over there. Thank you guys for joining us. You guys are awesome. And we'll see you guys next week.
And
Bye.
that's a wrap. I'm spent. See you,
All
chat.
right. See you, chat.